Welcome to your Mental Health Matters podcast, a community-minded mental health podcast providing real-life mental health talks supporting parents, educators, and students.
Welcome to your Mental Health Matters podcast. I'm Chantel Seymour. I am the division psychologist for the Fort McMurray Catholic Schools, and I am a certified trauma professional. The majority of my work at the school district is family counseling, individual counseling, and running parenting groups. So one of the main reasons why we wanted to do a podcast was I was finding over the years that parents didn't have the time to show up for evening meetings or in the middle of the day. I think being a parent is probably the hardest job on the planet.
Absolutely is.
So I wanted to make sure that we had a way of getting the information out there and helping parents, because as a family counselor with the district, I know that families are struggling. And I thought that this might be a great format to deliver that information. And I'm hoping that the community can join in with us and submit questions as we go through the school year. So, without further ado, I have some great co-hosts here with me today. Melanie, would you like to join in and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Melanie Fraser. I am the mental health coordinator for Fort McMurray Public School Division. In my role, I also do clinical supervision. I'm working with overseeing all 16 schools, and I do a lot of work with the parents, connecting with them, building those relationships, and really trying to navigate them to help support them whatever they need.
Yes.
So good.
Awesome. And we also have Joel.
Hey, so good to be with you all. That's such a cool dream you dreamed up here, Chantel. And it's so neat to come together as different school boards, as different people in the community to really care for Fort McMurray well. Myself and my colleagues, I haven't been coming up here for 25 years, but it all started about 25 or so years ago when Dr. Bob started working with some schools up here and supporting students. And for the last 25 years, myself, or probably about the last 8 years, we've been coming up and doing supports in schools, as well as providing some counseling and assessment services for students in Fort McMurray. So it's so awesome to be with you. I'm a registered psychologist as well. And really our passion here, I think in even creating and dreaming this podcast up, is how do we support the community well? So excited to be with the three of us as friends, just hanging out and having these conversations about mental health, because your mental health does matter.
Ooh, good one.
I like that plug. So over the course of the school year, we'll be meeting about once a month to put out a podcast. Again, keeping in mind that parents are very busy, keeping it short and to the point, and just providing the research, practical strategies, and life experiences, providing that information to parents, and hopefully reaching them. And I hope from the bottom of my heart that this actually helps families, and I'm hoping that they'll reach out to us, because this is really for them.
This is for them. We want this to be for our population, our kids, our parents. And the more we know about what they want, the more we'll be able to apply, make our answers accordingly based on what their needs are. And that's the most important thing. We want to listen to what parents have to say.
Yeah.
So good.
And I think being in Fort McMurray, we're very unique.
Yeah.
We've been through a lot in the last 5 years, and I think that our families and our challenges are unique to our population. So having something that's specifically for our population and our community just really hits home, and I hope that the parents enjoy it.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So good. So I got a question for you ladies. What do you want to cover this year? What are a few important topics that we're going to cover in probably our 10 or so episodes this year?
Yeah, and there's so many things that we get asked, both Chantel and I in the school system, and we have many hot topics. Mm-hmm. Some of the hotter topics are that anxiety that kids feel.
Definitely.
Why is my child screaming before coming into class? Why are transitions so difficult? Mm-hmm. These are the pieces that I find a lot of parents are really questioning, right? They just can't understand why their child is so dysregulated. And we can provide some really good information, clear information, and maybe some guidance of how to help support that.
Yeah, so good. That's an important trending topic. Any others kind of you think of, Chantel? And as you're listening too, we really want your feedback. So we're sending out some surveys. You can find us online as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback as to what's most important that you'd want us to cover in this podcast this year as well.
Absolutely. I think some hot button topics for me would be bedtime routines.
That's a good one.
That's definitely one that I come across a lot. And also parents ask me, how am I able to fill my child's cup? How am I able to be there for my child when I'm running on empty?
Yeah.
That's a big
How
one.
to be there. So I think those are some of the things that I'd like to cover over the course of the year.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that comes up throughout the year, we can always just pull that too. But there's definitely a lot of topics that we could
Totally.
pull from
Totally.
between the three of us.
I'm so glad you mentioned that about parents too, because as much as it is a podcast about supporting our students, it's about you as parents, how we can support you, and as well as education professionals. We all have that background. I am a teacher, I've worked as a school counselor, worked in school admin, and we all kind of come from that school lens. So we also want to be mindful in terms of supporting our local school communities up here and possibly in other regions as well. So those are a few considerations. I know for me, I'm super passionate about supporting ADHD. I myself, of course, have ADHD, so maybe I'm a little biased there. But I see a lot of students in my clinic, and there's some great supports and strategies that we can do to really help support those types of students, as well as emotional regulation. That's probably one of the other key things that I see a lot and support a lot. How do we develop those strategies at school as well as at home to develop awareness around emotions and begin to facilitate emotional regulation? So those are probably a few highlights, but I'm sure we look forward to your ideas and hearing some other things that we're going to cover in this year as well. I guess season 1 of the podcast maybe. And then the other thought I had, as this is an About Us podcast, is what would be just, I don't know, one fun fact or a couple of fun facts that each of you maybe want to share, maybe related to your profession, related to what you're doing. It could be just something totally fun that helps our audience just get to know you as well.
Yeah, and maybe add in what got us to the mental health field.
I love it. Yeah, that's a good one.
That's great. Do you want to go first?
Sure. So I originally, it's a silly story, but I watched Harriet the Spy when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
And she went to see a child psychologist, and he had a closet full of games.
Really?
And I was like, that's what I want to be when I grow up. And then as I got older and I started understanding the profession and actually what it did, I actually went into an undergraduate in psychology, but to do research.
Wow.
So I was supposed to do research until I came to Fort McMurray for a summer job in 2012. And I started working with United Way.
Okay.
And we would go to all the partner agencies in the community. And I kept going back to trauma.
Great.
Yeah.
A lot of these agencies are working with the aftermath and the impact of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And recognizing that, I couldn't walk away. So then I applied to counseling, and here I am today.
That is your backstory.
That is. So
There
it
you go.
started with Harriet the Spy.
So you knew at age 8.
I knew at age
Great.
8,
Okay.
yes.
That's
There you
very impressive. I don't know if I knew at age 8 that I wanted to be a counselor, but I knew I wanted to help.
Great.
My early years, I worked in group homes as
Okay.
a counselor in group
Great.
homes,
Great.
and I always work with special needs populations.
Was
So
that in Fort McMurray or somewhere? different?
Ontario.
Okay. Very
Yeah,
cool.
so that was my background. I from the age of, honestly, I think my first job I was 14 years old, and I worked in a group home, and then I continued to work my way up, and I realized I want to do more.
Great.
I don't just want to do programming, behavior, plans. I want to actually learn how I could help support these families, because I found there was so much work with families that I couldn't access
Great.
because they needed more than just programming for their child with special needs.
Yeah.
They needed to know how to adapt.
Right.
They needed to know how to deal with all the strategies. So that kind of got me digging and getting my psychology degree. But then as I grew and I had kids, and then I had more kids, and then I had more kids.
Like how many kids do you have? Is it 5?
I have 5
That's
kids.
Right,
I
right.
have 5
Wow.
kids. 2 of them are my stepchildren, but
Yeah.
I've had them since they were babies, so they are my kids.
Yeah. So
But
good.
learning all about that, learning about blended families,
Yeah.
learning about, I've been in Fort McMurray for 21 years, so learning about being in a town that's highly traumatized
Yeah.
from all of the disasters we've had and
Yeah.
all of the issues we've had. It helped me grow, and I just really wanted to hone in my master's and my education around trauma and
Neat.
family work and parent work.
Neat.
And I've always been working in school systems
Yeah.
throughout group homes, school systems, and then in my private practice. So my passion runs very deep into my family life and work life.
Yeah, I love
Wow.
it. Well, I mean, hey, our clinic's called Family Life, so I can relate
Right.
to that. But
Great
I think,
segue.
right? Yeah, I think backstory for me, I never knew what I wanted to do growing up. I always knew I wanted to help people, and this is a long backstory, so I'll keep it short. I think I went to school for about 6 or 7 different things. But when I was in high school, I either wanted to be a pastor, engineer, or teacher. And my ultimate dream was to be an NFL coach. Problem is, I don't live in the U.S., and that would probably be a long time away. But I love being able to help people, and just when I was after high school and just had graduated, I actually did a lot of coaching for sports. And there's something about getting people together on the same page, on the same team, and just working towards a goal. So I think that was just such a powerful experience. I thought, man, if I could get paid to do that, that'd be amazing. I didn't figure that part out, but thankfully I kind of drifted through engineering and then into education. My parents are both teachers and just really have an incredible legacy and just impact a lot of families in the local region. I grew up in Spruce Grove. So there was something about what they did that really inspired me. And yeah, I love teaching. As you guys know, I'm a teacher as well. But for me, I just knew there was something a little different that I just had to kind of explore a bit, right? Being ADHD, I just get bored very easily. So I think sitting in a classroom all day just would be tough for me as well. So anyway, I did my teaching degree, really enjoyed being a teacher. I worked as a school counselor, a bit in school administration, and then kind of just began to emerge and unfold, working with a lot of families, supporting students, but also kind of working in schools and just how do we support schools well. So I'm not an NFL coach, but I guess I am a coach in a way as a psychologist that get to support, whether it be parents and teachers in schools or parents and their children. How do we get on the same page, be a team, and journey together through whatever life's challenges bring us? So that'd be my backstory. I guess one fun fact too would be I grew up on a farm just outside of Spruce Grove, which is about, central Alberta, close to Edmonton. And my brother still has a large cattle farm, which I help out with, and we've got some purebred Simmental cattle. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I like to do in my free time. How about you guys? One fun fact, and we'll wrap up our intro episode here.
Oh, Melanie, you go next.
Putting you guys on the spot here.
Yeah.
Right? There you go.
Fun fact. What was the question? Fun fact.
Yeah, fun fact. What do you like to do for fun? Something we might not know about you. See if you can surprise us.
Yeah, I have a keen interest in mixed martial arts.
Jay, I've known you for a number of years. That was a good surprise. I did not see that one coming.
My husband does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and we are huge fans. We have a home gym. We have the grappling mats in our home, and
there you go.
He has tried to teach me. I'm a beginner.
Right.
I am not very good at it. I'm more of an observer.
Okay.
I've watched my children go through it. I've watched them do jiu-jitsu, and it's a beautiful thing, and I love the discipline, but it's fun. And
Very
nobody
cool.
would ever think that I was interested in that.
That was a great curveball.
Yeah.
That
That's what I was
is
waiting
so
for.
cool. My husband actually does a lot of MMA, and he asked me to go to boxing one time. And I saw myself shadow box, and I was done. I was like, no, this is not good for anyone. So that was the extent of my MMA career.
So we won't see you in the octagon anytime soon.
No, not anytime soon.
One thing I would like to mention before we continue on is our love for schools.
Yeah.
That's the collective.
Totally.
So it's not only the therapy piece, the counseling piece. Between the three of us, how many years of working in schools do we have?
Yeah.
We have an extensive amount of experience. From kindergarten, early entry, ECDP, all the way to grade 12.
Yeah.
And I think that will be a really great piece that we'll be able to utilize in our conversations because we'll be able to access all of our knowledge for that.
Totally. That's what it's all about, right? It's like, how do we work as a team, whether it be parents or teachers or just different school professionals that come in and be on the same page. I know in working in schools, it's so important to have everyone with that multidisciplinary lens.
That's it.
Thinking not just, okay, here's some strategies for a student, but okay, how does that practically work in a classroom setting?
Yeah.
So just having the different angles and lenses, which is pretty cool.
And I think that we're in a very unique position being with the school boards and working with the schools because not everybody has access to mental health.
That's right.
There's a lot of barriers to mental health, and I think being a part of the school system, we can break down some of those barriers and have access to parents and kids that wouldn't normally access services outside. For example, this podcast, right? Just finding different ways to deliver that to the people we serve, really.
Yeah.
So
And
good.
even staff, because the one thing we did not mention is staff. We could be catering these to staff, to teachers, to EAs, and the support that they need, and we could provide that for them to do their work and to hone in on that.
Absolutely.
It's actually one of the funnest things I think I get to do, like come in and do professional development. I know you both of you do that as well.
Yeah.
Just diving in with educational assistants or teachers and how do we just support staff and just understanding and working through different mental health challenges and diagnoses. It's a lot of fun. I know September, that's the fun fact I should have shared. September is my favorite time of year. And that's kind of crazy for teachers. I'm sorry, this is a tough year.
It's
I
chaos.
apologize in advance. But it's just energizing, you know? Even as a teacher, in the summer I got bored. So I always look forward to coming back to school, even as a student, you know? And there's just something new and fresh about September, the challenges it presents. And honestly, teachers are the hardest working people. They've got the hardest job in the world. What I do now is like, that can't be compared to that. It's going into schools, it's easier. Yeah. But I was so pumped in the last couple of weeks to get into schools, to see kids, to work with kids. There's just such energy for me. My wife knows it. She's like, this is a good time of year for you, Joel. You're going to dive in, and it's just so good. There's something so special about being a part of a school community and just all of us coming together to help each other.
Absolutely. I am a firm believer that when the adults are doing well, kids do well.
Right.
And so we start with the adults and we work our way down to the kiddos. And I believe wholeheartedly that it does start with parents and staff, because kids spend so much time with the staff at school. Yeah. And so teaching them the skills and helping them out. And a big part of my push this year is preventing burnout.
Yes.
That's something that we've been talking about from the last week in August, because we need our staff to be doing well, because they have a lot of little kiddos in their hands.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Very true.
This is a fun intro episode, and I think that's a really important point though about burnout. Give us just one little sneak peek of maybe one episode. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about burnout, and then we'll circle back because we're having a lot of fun just introducing ourselves. This first episode is more of a get to know you episode, so we're a little bit off script here, which is fun. We got to go back to one fun fact, but give us a little intro, one tip for burnout for schools, maybe each of you, and then we'll get back to your fun fact.
One tip for burnout that I've been very aware of is recognizing the signs when you're starting to become burnt out instead of when you're fully in it. So what are your telltale signs? And they're going to be different for everyone.
Yes, that's very true.
And if nothing else, over the last few years in the school system, I have learned to recognize my triggers. Right. And that's when I need to put in a little bit more self-care. Yeah. And one of the things that I have learned over the summer, I read anything worth doing is worth doing a little. Right. Because I was the type of person that I always wanted, if I didn't have 45 minutes for a workout, I didn't work out. Yeah. Right. Well, if I didn't have if I didn't have an hour to do something, then I couldn't do it.
I really like that.
Yeah. Anything worth doing is worth doing a little. So even if it's a 5-minute walk around the block with my dog.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's the biggest barrier for me. I do 5 minutes of, actually it's like 7 minutes of my like Peloton type bike. So it's a knockoff, by the way. Not that fancy, but it's a Peloton type bike. 7 minutes at different reps. I get my heart rate up, and that is amazing. I feel great after. But if I thought about biking for half an hour, I would never do it.
No. So you're right. It's so small, attainable goals, right?
And a fun fact about me is I actually do have a Peloton.
I know you do. You're fancy.
I do love the Peloton.
Wow. I don't know enough about this. That will be another conversation I think that we're going to have.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So one of my strategies that is for, the question was...
We were talking about burnout, self-care, staff, things like
that. Boundaries, and as counselors, we know that. We understand boundaries well. But for parents, for people in their jobs, within the school system, we need to know where our limits are. We need to understand how to put up boundaries. One of the things I've learned that's been really helpful for me is it's feels a little juvenile, but it works, is getting a script in my head of how to decline when somebody to say no, right? It seems simple, but if you don't have that learned script, when you get put on the spot, your knee-jerk reaction, okay, sure, and then you're going to walk away and you're going to be like, oh, I didn't want to do that. Yeah. So those boundaries are so important, and knowing how to say no and saying it diplomatically and feeling okay and walking away with your head held tight, knowing that I didn't offend them, but I respected my boundaries so that I don't burn out.
Yeah, so good.
Love that.
Here's my schedule. Here's my next availability.
That's it, exactly.
I've got a secret weapon on this side of things. I'm really bad with this because I love saying yes to everything. My wife, she manages. She really keeps
so your wife is your person.
Keeps me honed in. Yeah, I know I can't say yes to things, otherwise I'll get in trouble. So it really helps me. It's great. Yeah, so that's so good. I know we did some extra seminars, maybe it was last year, I think, about the mental health continuum model. Yes, so if you haven't heard of that, check it out online. It's developed right here in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a practical way. We talked about this last year, Mel. I think we might have talked a bit about it too, Chantel. We had principals or people at school just post it on their wall, and it was just a very chill way to just check in and have a sense of where staff are at, where each person is at. So it's a great tool even for parents and teenagers. You might not want to talk about more kiddish kind of zones of regulation type language, but it's a way even for a parent and their teenager, if you're concerned about their mental health, you can kind of check in with them in a 4-colored system, so you don't have to have a half-hour interrogation with them about what's going on, and quickly know, okay, you're in this zone, let's pick a couple strategies, we're good to go. So we're having a lot of fun, ladies. I know this is kind of our intro, just get to know us. This one's a little bit less scripted, a little bit less direct. We promise that each of our sessions we're going to try to keep it about 20 minutes and really focus on specific content. But we're having fun, and we want you to be able to get to know us just a little bit more today. Chantel, we got to hear your fun facts though before we wrap up this intro fun session.
Fun facts.
Yeah.
The Peloton one didn't count?
I guess that one counted. You didn't really introduce it as that, so I guess you just kind of snuck it in there.
I just kind of snuck it in there.
Okay.
But this has been absolutely amazing, and we've just kind of touched the tip of the iceberg with the information that we're going to be getting into.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have enjoyed this conversation, please tune in monthly for our podcast. And if there's anything that you want discussed, please do not hesitate to reach out and let us know. As you can see, we love discussing mental health. There's a lot of passion here. And as we said at the beginning of this is for our community, and we want to make it about you.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Please reach out to us if you have questions or comments about today's topic, or questions or suggestions for future topics. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, we encourage you to reach out to local agencies for support, as our podcast is not a substitute for counseling. If you require immediate support, please contact the crisis line or your local hospital.